This is Gotham Season 5, Episode 3, Penguin, Our Hero.
I'm David Mazuz, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Robin Lloyd Taylor, and you are listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
This is Andrew Sellon, Mr. Penn on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.
Welcome back, Gothamites. Welcome back, fellow detectives. This is Gotham TV Podcast, episode 131, about Gotham, Season 5, Episode 3, Penguin, Our Hero. I am one of your hosts, John.
And I'm your other host, Derek, with our spoiler-filled discussion about this episode. Ooh, that kind of hurts, that opening section from Andrew Sellon there, where he says his welcome as Mr. Penn from Gotham. As we saw in this episode, we have lost one of our favourite characters in Gotham, Mr. Penn.
It's such a shame to see characters that have come on board and really developed that character, you know, as a supporting character, but made it so memorable to have them killed off by a stray bullet ultimately. And certainly, you know, a loyal, trusted advisor to Penguin, to Oswald Cobblepot. But seemingly, you know, his time had come on Gotham with all the craziness. And who knows, he may have been in the building right at the end if he hadn't been shot. So he could have been toasted anyway.
Exactly. Well, the good news, though, is that we do have a full hour-long interview with Andrew Sellon, who played the part of Mr. Penn on Gotham. I talked to him all about his time on the show right the way back through Season 4, some of the greatest moments that we have on the show. I think where we have the episode where Mr. Penn is found in the R&R, dressed in his onesie, which was hilarious.
Yeah,
the many times he's had to tell really bad news to Oswald Cobblepot, and the tricks he uses to stay at least arm's length away from Oswald Cobblepot to make sure he doesn't get strangled when he gets that bad news. But we also specifically talked about this episode, his final episode on the show, why he had these moments, what that last moment with Oswald Cobblepot meant, and really about the trust and relationship that was between those two characters. A really good interview. I hope you get a chance to check it out on GothamTVPodcast.com. Should be out really soon.
Yeah, really good interview there, done by Derek and with Andrew Sellon as well, who plays Mr. Penn. Yeah, he certainly was the bearer of bad news, and it's amazing he lasted this far, and in fact doesn't die at the hands of Penguin, despite even getting up and leaving him in this episode to move from Penguin's safe haven, which is really just for Penguin, to the safe haven that has been set up by Lucius and the GCPD. Yeah. So yeah, really, really good. And of course we have our thoughts on episode 3 from David Mazuz as well. So really good stuff here for the final season of Gotham. Yeah, really good. So it is Penguin, our hero, our captain, our king.
There's some great moments in this episode, but there is also some really crazy moments in this episode as well. Do you know what I'm going to do? I think we should go through our normal details of the episode, the synopsis, and then we'll bring in David Mazuz's piece about this episode, because his thoughts are specifically related to one of the big moments in the episode. So I want to put it in there.
Absolutely. But first, fellow Gothamites, fellow detectives, please remember to share the podcast and share the love. Subscribe, rate us, leave a review on any good or evil podcast catcher of your choice over at GothamTVPodcast.com, where you can find a selection of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, you name it, whatever your listening device or program of choice is. But on to our spoiler-filled review. Derek, what are some of the episode details?
Well, we're into Season 5, and as we said, this is a season by the wonderful crew behind Gotham for the fans of Gotham. So they keep bringing back lots of members of the crew and staff behind the show that have done many episodes before. This episode is Rob Bailey's episode. This is the 10th episode of Gotham that Rob has directed, right back from the excellent Penguin's Umbrella back in Season 1, which we all thought was the game changer for the show Gotham. Once it got to Penguin's Umbrella, the entire show became the show it's come today. He's done 10 episodes in total, right the way back from then. And the episode was directed by Zi Shun. Zi has done a bunch of episodes since he joined the show back in Season 3. I think this is his 9th episode so far, and he's done 3 episodes for this season alone. Of the 12 episodes, 3 of them are from Zi Shun.
Yeah,
cool.
It really is great seeing all this. I mean, as well, there is Stop Hitting Yourself, which is another great episode that was directed by Rob Bailey. So he's really, I remember distinctly, even now, Penguin's Umbrella. In some ways, a really different show back in season 1. I mean, Penguin's Umbrella was a very early episode, I think around episode 8. That really showed the political connivings of Penguin, and in particular, Carmen Falcone as well.
Yeah.
It really just was a great moment there in the first half of season 1. So really, really nice stuff. So yeah.
Absolutely. And also, Zishun, who's done all of these episodes, I mentioned the writer of these episodes, recently he's moved on to a new career, just after finishing up his work on Gotham. He's joined a bunch of partners to set up a comic book company called TKO Comics. I highly recommend going out and checking them out. Just go to tkopresents.com and you'll be able to sign in there and get some great books by the likes of Zishun himself and by Garth Ennis as well, and loads more creators involved. But check it out. It's a brand new way of writing comics and a brand new way of distributing comics. Got loads of coverage at the start of January of this year, and hopefully it's going to be a big success for Zishun. Love seeing our former Gotham crew and writers and directors going on and doing great things in the future. And this seems right in our wheelhouse as well. So definitely check it out.
Yeah, great stuff.
John, do you want to tell us what Rob and Zishun gave us for this episode with your synopsis?
Sure. Jim Gordon hopes to stop the gang fighting in Gotham with the creation of Haven to act as a safe zone for refugees in the devastated city. As more people arrive to take advantage of Haven's safety, a number of its new inhabitants, Mr. Penn, Edward the Bulldog, and the Gertrude Capelput Memorial Choir, attract the attention of the Penguin. As the Penguin goes to Haven to reclaim his staff and people with the aid of the Street Demons, Lowboys, and the Undead gangs, Selina Kyle is more determined than ever to find and reclaim Jeremiah for her own revenge and on her own terms. She convinces Bruce Wayne to help her, and as they navigate the violence of the mutant gangs in the Dark Zone, they find a way to join Jeremiah's gang at an initiation ceremony in an abandoned church given over to the cult of Jeremiah. As Selina plays Russian roulette with Ecco, a rift forms between her and Bruce, as she is determined to do it her way. Meanwhile, back at Haven, the Penguin goes from a villain to hero, but loses his trusted advisor and his pens. And things go tick, tick, boom.
Hugely shocking moments once again in this episode of Gotham. We've been doing our recordings over on YouTube about our 3 most shocking moments for this episode. The ones for this one, I think we wrote about 6 or 7 to choose our top 3 for this episode, because it just seems to build and build and build and get more and more shocks in there. Like, so many surprising moments.
Yeah, just a bit. It's kind of like, and here is our brand new neighborhood. Oh. Whoops.
It's gone.
It's gone.
Everybody's gone. They're all dead, Jim. They're all dead. Yeah, a bit of a shocking one, and definitely one of those ones where you want to find out what happens next week. Who's inside the building? Who's lost? Who's still alive? Be very interesting to know. Before we get into our top 5 case notes, we do have our final piece of input from the wonderful David Mazouz, who plays Bruce Wayne on Gotham. His thoughts about him working back with Selina Kyle, and for the first time, as we mentioned, with Catwoman this season.
Hey, Derek.
Hiya, David. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good, mate. Doing good. Welcome back.
Thank you.
On episode 3, we see a kind of a huge moment here. We've heard from Cameron Cordova that she feels that she's always been playing Selina Kyle for the first couple of seasons, and in this episode, really, she plays Catwoman for the first time. There's a different energy between the two of you in this episode when you go off to battle a comic book villain, the mutants. We see a great fight scene between yourself and Cameron and the mutants on the street. Was it very different after 5 years working with Cameron and doing a scene like this where you see her as a much more powerful villain? There's a little bit of trepidation between Bruce and Selina in the way they battle and the way how far they're willing to go to get what they want.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is really the first time that we see that key difference. I mean, obviously Batman is a hero and Catwoman is a villain in the comics. But why is that? And I think there's a very fine line that separates the two, because they are incredibly similar from their looks to their actions. They both are wearing a black, somewhat latex onesie, and they're prowling around on rooftops at night. That's both of them. So what really makes them different? And it really comes down to their willingness to kill, in my opinion. Because Catwoman's not bad. I mean, obviously she's a thief too. There's a minor detail, but for the most part, I think in my mind that's kind of what it comes down to. And this is really the first time that we see that difference come to life in such a vivid way, where Bruce stops her from crossing that line, and she's not happy about it. And we'll see what she does with that in future episodes.
Thank you, David, for those thoughts on this episode. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think there is that fine line that separates Bruce and Selina, or Batman and Catwoman. And I think it's really interesting, actually, that some of the origins of that has been really looked at in these 5 seasons of Gotham. And I think we really see this come to the fore. And I would agree that willingness to kill by Selina, certainly within the context of what she says to Bruce, which is, I've done it your way forever since the beginning. Now, with her renewed confidence and the changes that have happened to her, she is beginning to take charge of her own way of doing things on her terms. And in particular, because it's about Jeremiah and the fact that he shot her, then this is really personal. And even with as much goodwill and friendship that she has for Bruce Wayne, she wants to do this on her terms. And I really liked that moment where she stood up to Bruce to say, I've done it your way. Now it's time to do it my way. I think the great thing is that what happens here as they get older, as they move into adulthood with Batman and Catwoman, she is a antagonist that you can root for. You know, there is a blurred line there between her being good or evil. She is a thief rather than a killer, but she will kill because people have been, as she says, been trying to kill her. So this was really, really nice to see this interaction between the two. And of course, yes, the latex onesie. Who wouldn't want to wear that? I don't know. It's like, oh, right, okay. Latex onesie sounds the most uncomfortable thing ever.
There's probably a lot of talc in there, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that little gag from David Mazouz, you know, that is quite a similarity between the two of them. They're both standing on roofs in pretty much latex onesies. So, you know, what is it that makes them different? Really, a really good point. And to your point as well, John, they have explored this relationship over 5 seasons. And I will say, one of the things I think Gotham's been hugely successful with is adding lots of background to characters that people thought they knew. You know, Catwoman is a very well-known character in the comic books, but you kind of get a little bit of her backstory in the comic books, a little bit, not a huge amount, from when she's a late teenage into 20s kind of character. But over the years, she's kind of kept a very similar storyline over and over again, where herself and Bruce fall in and out of relationships a lot. Whereas in this show, I think what Cameron Bickendova has lent to this character is a lot of extra love from me anyway, as a fan of the comic books. I now see the Selina Kyle in the comics as being just the older version of Cameron Bickendovas character, who I've fallen in love with on the show. I think she's done a great job of giving some depth and dimension to that character.
Definitely. I think she's just added layers, and so has David Mazouz as well. Just layers and layers to where these characters have come from very small moments to really big points along that route as well. So it's fantastic. So yeah, really great to hear your thoughts, David, on episode 3. Thank you.
Yeah, and obviously David did record all of that together in one interview that I did with him just before Christmas last year at the end of filming for Gotham. So he hasn't just been sitting in a podcast room waiting for his moment to come on the podcast to share his thoughts about each episode. So I will be putting out that full interview, the 10 minutes that we had with David Mazouz, all about his thoughts about the series so far and those little snippets about the individual episode. But all those out together this week as well over on Gotham TV podcast.
That would be awesome though if we did have David Mazouz some kind of round table on Gotham with, you know, where we just discuss this final season. That would be pretty cool.
Absolutely, yeah. It would be great to have all of the cast just dialing in and telling us what their thoughts about the individual episodes are, of course. And as I mentioned, we do have Andrew Sellon coming up, talking about his time on the show as well. Let's get on to case note number 1, John. Penguin's War.
Yes, O Penguin, our king, as it is sung so beautifully by the Gertrude Kappelput Memorial Choir. As he limps down the spiral staircase. This is Penguin's War, really. He is attacked again by the street demons. I really kind of like this moment where, ultimately Penguin fights back and uses his superior firepower, and they're like, we didn't really think this through. After, you know, they explained that the only reason they attacked was because of that graffiti on the wall that the Penguin was here, which we saw Ed Nigma uncover at the location of the Street Demons headquarters.
Yeah.
And of course, Penguin's just like, I would do that. I'm not like that kind of person.
You think I'd leave anybody alive if I was trying to start a war?
Exactly. Really, really good. You know, Penguin is not the sort of person that goes tagging walls, I think. So it was really, really nicely done. Just like that nice little comedic moment. It's one of those interesting things, isn't it, where Oswald Cobblepot immediately, being attacked by the street demons and then is immediately persuades them and turns them around to work for him to then go after Haven effectively. Because over the period of this episode, then things just are getting worse and worse for Penguin's zone ultimately.
Yeah, exactly.
So we have a really nice contrast here that shows that when the Gertrude Kappelport Memorial Choir has left Penguin's protection, and we just have Olga, his trusty maid, singing or trying to sing the same song on her own as he walks down the stairs, and he's like, where is everyone? And even Mr. Penn has fled Penguin's protection.
Yes, taking poor little Edward, the bulldog, with him. It's great to see Deborah Unger back in this role of Olga. We haven't seen her for a few seasons now, I think, and maybe a full season actually, since last time we saw her. But just that moment when she's standing on the stairs and Oswald's shouting at her, even though she's being really respectful and giving him his morning song as he's grown accustomed to, but then calls out, you know, did they take my dog? And she goes, rumor has it he went willingly. Hilarious moment. Really, really good little touch. But yes, we do get to confirm the name of the other gang in Gotham, the one that we saw last episode. They looked like they were wearing costumes from Dia de los Muertos. They're the Undead, is that gang, because we see them joining up with the Low Boys and the Street Demons and Penguin towards the end of the episode. So that's the other name, the other gang that were attacked by Barbara at the end of episode 2.
Yes, I was calling them the Day of the Dead gang. Yeah, exactly. I think the other great thing from Olga is how she pronounces Haven as well, which is like Haven. It's really nicely done. I mean, these characters, Olga, you know, Mr. Penn, mother and child, there's been so many of them throughout, Gotham, and it's just...
Don't forget Creepy Nurse from episode 1 as well.
Yeah, Creepy Nurse.
Fantastic.
But I mean, it goes beyond this season. It's part of the reason why we brought, you know, Gotham Character of the Week to recognize, these smaller characters, that bring to life something that is integral to an episode. And in some cases, like with Mr. Penn especially, but also even with Olga, you know, there is a reoccurrence there that embeds them firmly as a fan favorite.
Definitely.
So it was really nice to see Olga back, you know, telling Oswald the truth, a bit like Mr. Penn.
Yes, yeah. That's it. That's case note number 1, Penguin's War, which is really that the war didn't happen, that whoever it was trying to start, Ed, or the combination of Ed and Lee that were trying to start the war between Penguin and all the other gangs. He actually just turned it to his advantage, just like Oswald does every single time. So on to case note number 2, Selina on her revenge streak. What a great opening for Selina in this episode, as she is having that flashback, really, a kind of dream, kind of nightmare about the moment when she was shot by Jeremiah, the kiss that she had with Bruce Wayne, everything that was going on. And she wakes up, has that moment of fear that she's still stuck to her bed, and then realizes actually she's been cured, and leaves the hospital and goes and gets her old costume back and goes out in the city, or a new costume, I guess, goes out in the city to search for Jeremiah. It's just so good to have Selina back properly on the streets again.
It's a really nice moment, I think, here, because, you know, she persuades Bruce to come with her. Bruce has got a lot of reservations. Because you know, in trying to get some information about where Jeremiah is in Gotham, they meet this guy who's kind of almost having a bit of a breakdown.
Yeah.
And he's kind of saying Jeremiah's not the worst thing in this dark zone of Gotham, and he shows all these scars on his back. I mean, I did think of Victor Zsasz, you know, these slices and cuts.
Yeah,
it
felt
felt
like a kill over and over again on his body. Yeah,
it really felt like a Victor Zsasz tag on this body.
Yeah,
so it was really, really good. But I also just think that, you know, Bruce agrees to go only if, you know, he's brought back to stand trial, to get to have justice applied to him.
And sent to a crazy house is what he specifically calls out. So he still thinks that there will be an Arkham Asylum where you can send these characters to. It's a very defining moment when you have our Bruce Wayne standing in front of Selina Kyle going, no, you can't kill him. You need to bring him back, put him on trial and send him to the crazy house. This is a constantly reoccurring problem, some people would say, with Batman, where all he wants to do is put these people in crazy houses with revolving doors rather than killing them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I think as well, you see here that Bruce is really scared of Selina's drive to go after Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. He knows how dangerous Jeremiah is, and, he doesn't want to lose Selina. But this moment of Selina really stepping up to Bruce, I think, starts here, where she goes, I'm not yours to lose.
Yes.
She's really... Yes, she's friends with Bruce. Yes, she'd probably have a relationship with Bruce, but she has this independence, and she is here starting to think of things on her own terms. Even with bringing Bruce along, she is kind of slightly, sketchy with him as to whether, Jeremiah will be brought back alive to stand trial and go to the crazy house. So, it's really nice. And I think, coming back as well to your point, Derek, there's that moment where they're in the dark zone. It's kind of nighttime, and Selina is doing all these handstands and walking on her hands, doing backflips and all that along the cars as she's speaking with Bruce Wayne. They're both in black. They're both, trying to find and track down Jeremiah. Mm-hmm. And this just felt really, really nice, having these two patrolling the streets, just like, it was for old time's sake.
Absolutely. Almost. Even just as they're entering the dark zone for the first time, when Bruce and Selina are just chatting away, it just really did feel like old times. I like that Bruce has that reaction to her, just has a little smile on his face going, it's great to have you back, finally. But they do meet some pretty well-known comic book films as they enter the Dark Zone. The Mutants, who we know from The Dark Knight Returns, the wonderful Frank Miller book, which is effectively where we see these characters for the first time. The Mutants kind of rose up after Batman retires, after Bruce Wayne goes into retirement. They rose up in the city. So this is something that happens much further in the future of the character of Batman. But I love that they've taken the exact design of these characters and put them into this episode, including them calling out their famous slice and dice phrase to Selina Kyle. So
slice and dice.
Yes.
Little chickie.
Yes, when we saw the adaptation of that book as a cartoon, I think that phrase has stayed with you for years.
It has. Slice and dice is such a great little tagline for this gang. Mm-hmm. And I mean they're sort of transposed so well from the comics here, even with those glasses with the squared out lenses. Absolutely. And so on, and the pointy teeth that they've kind of filed down
on the mutant leader.
Yeah. Really nicely done. And I love we see them as they come into this area. There's a guy in a car with his throat slit, and then there's a guy running down the street in what used to be a good neighborhood with this bomb strapped to his hands, and which ends up being a nail bomb. So, things are on the slide in this once good neighborhood. Mm-hmm. And then as they see them beating to a pulp this blown up body, that's where they then come face to face with the leader of the mutants. And there is a great fight that ensues here. And I have to say, it was really nicely done. Selina facing off against the leader, determined to get some kind of intel from him about where Jeremiah is. And then Bruce taking on the other half of this gang who had strapped the bomb to this poor guy and blown him up to protect Selina's back as she goes to work on the leader. But of course, again, we see this hint of Selina's new approach, which is, again, she just she sets the kitty claws out and just keeps attacking him. And there's that great moment where Bruce can see this happening, but he's still having to fight off and defend Selina's sort of rear guard, I suppose, from the mutant gang. And he's doing it as fast as he can so that he can, then take charge of that situation to prevent her from killing the leader of the mutants. And this kind of carries on though through even once they're in this abandoned church on the hunt for Jeremiah, where you get a really nice moment where he's still alive, isn't he? He was out to kill me, so I think he's gotten a good deal here, that she says to Bruce. So she's really making the point here that, okay, I get that you don't want to kill people, but these people are out to kill us. And if I have to kill them to protect myself, I'm going to do it. And in this case, that hasn't happened. So he's gotten a good deal because he would not have held back if the tables were reversed. So this is a really, again, that little hint of the two of them kind of just rifting apart here in terms of how they view this investigation and getting Jeremiah.
Yeah, really, really good points. And definitely don't want to gloss over the fact that the way that Bruce stops Selena is by using his back grappler. Back grappling hook to just stop her arm from continuing the punching. And I love the reaction from Selena. It's just, what the hell has he just done? Really, really good stuff. Let's continue with Selena.
Yeah, let's grapple with case note 3, which is Selena versus Ecco. And of course, you have to be all in for this because this is a game of Russian roulette, Jeremiah initiation ceremony, of which Ecco has seen a pretty nasty side of that as well, where it is 6 guns, 6 bullets, 1 round in each chamber, and the other person has the control of firing it to the back of the head. And yeah, I mean, this Russian roulette, not everyone makes it. And there's that great moment where the danger that Selena becomes real for Bruce as he walks into this area of this church that they're exploring to try and find Jeremiah. And he sees all these bodies with a single gunshot to the back of the head, or the exit point at the front of the head.
Yeah.
And then you see this moment in a sort of a drained swimming pool or something where they're all in a circle with each member pointing the gun to the back of the other person in front of them, and playing this game of Russian roulette. So yeah, it's
so creepy.
It is really creepy. I do think here as well, Ecco looks superb. Her makeup is amazing. I love the eyebrow above, the eyebrow below the other eye. You have the full lips on one side, on one half of her lips, and then the full lips on the bottom half of her lips. Everything is sort of matched and opposite.
Yeah.
Really nicely
and it
done.
Just adds just that sense of creepiness and just everything being off center, everything being very confused in the mind of Ecco. And we find out the reason why really is because, well, she's played this game. Selena challenges her and says, this is way too crazy. If you think anybody should play this game, you should play it. And she goes, I have. And the bullet is still lodged inside her brain. So
rattling around.
Yeah. Remember, like the first time we met Ecco back in season 4, she was just a PA for Jeremiah and for Jerome. She dealt with them in the past. But she was just a standard person that could kick ass, like she was a good fighter. But now we're seeing the crazy side of this character, and it seems to have been caused by playing this game, and following Jeremiah down this path of absolute craziness. But I'm really liking what they're doing with her. Obviously, I think we can probably say it right now. We know that this is going to be our Harley Quinn for Gotham, in the same way that Jeremiah and Jerome are the Gotham version of Joker. Everybody probably knows this by now, but just in case you didn't, we do get her quoting the infamous line from Harley Quinn of, "Oh, puddin', aren't you delicious?" So she is just stating that simple fact. If you think there's another Harley Quinn coming on the show, this is our Harley Quinn, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Selena has a nice retort with "I'm no pudding." Really nice. As they then fight it out, really nicely done. I mean, I think the great thing here is that Ecco has been through this process herself, and while she's fighting with Selena, she says the question that she was willing to look death in the face to let her old self die so she can be reborn with Jeremiah, which Ecco thinks that Selena hasn't, because Selena has used her claws, her kitty claws, to stop the hammer from striking on the gun to prevent the bullet from going. And of course, this is all seen by Ecco, who then knows exactly who she is.
Yeah, and I'd absolutely argue, and I think I did while I was watching the episode, I was kind of thinking,
it is, yeah.
Well, Ecco is saying to Selena exactly what's happened to Selena. Selena has also faced death and let her old self die to become her new self. And her new self wants to kill Jeremiah. That's what her new self wants to do. She believes in the fact that if someone tries to kill her, she's going to kill them. That's where she is, and that's where she's landed with this new version of herself. So this challenge from Ecco seems to be completely misplaced. Even though Ecco thinks she knows who Selena is, she has no clue.
She has no idea of the metamorphosis that Selena has gone through in the last few episodes, which is ultimately what Ecco is asking her to do. And it's almost Selena is like, I am who I am now. I know who I am, and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good about myself, and you're not going to get me to do some crazy stuff. I've already gone through that by eating effectively the magic acorn, which helped her become now who she is, or at least it has emboldened her and enabled her to be this full-flowing Catwoman. And it's really nicely played out here as well, I think.
Absolutely. And just want to point out, because I know this probably will strike it as a bit weird to some people watching the episode, it's kind of underlined from Harvey Bullock. At one point in this episode, this takes place a week after last week's episode, so Selena has been recuperating for a week since she took that acorn, maybe a little bit over a week, in fact. So just to point out that there has been a little bit of time going on between last episode and this episode. So I know that it looks like she's completely recovered with no issues at all very quickly. And a week is very quick to recover, but obviously magic involved. So get that. But I do think it's important to just point out there has been a little bit of time passed. It's not just like she had the acorn and then was suddenly medically completely cured.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, during this fight as well, Ecco pulls the gun on Selena. And whilst they're talking about this rebirth, or what Jeremiah can teach you, just before Selena kind of knocks the gun out of her hands and Ecco fires, Jeremiah has taught Selena a lot. She knows what to do, and in fact she hates people when they point a gun at her, which is what Ecco is doing. So this is really pushing all the wrong buttons, and Ecco doesn't really know this. So I mean, Ecco doesn't really know who Selena is. A lot of stuff has happened, and with that, she manages to sort of get the gun away from her face as Ecco fires it off. But ultimately, Ecco does get away because Bruce manages to distract Selena as he's coming to rescue her. And again, this is ultimately where all these other previous moments in this episode leave Bruce effectively handcuffed to railings in the church, because Selena is effectively, taking the Frank Sinatra mantra to I'm going to do it my way, and leaves him behind as she tries to go off and follow Ecco in order to get to her goal, which is Jeremiah Valeska.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure whether this was because Bruce slightly distracted Selena by shouting at her, trying to get her to stop trying to kill Ecco effectively. I'm just not too sure that the timing of it was just slightly where I couldn't tell. It feels like Bruce tried to distract her and it didn't work. Selena just didn't gain the advantage against Ecco in that moment, and Ecco got away. I have to say the setup of that scene where you have all the discarded guns on the floor, some with a bullet in, some without, it just leaves a lovely bit of tension where you're continuing playing this massive game of Russian roulette. Will Ecco reach a gun that's got a bullet in it? Will she take it out? Will she shoot Selena? Will Selena get a gun and kill Ecco with it? It really, or will every single gun misfire effectively? Nice little, nice moment and a really good touch. And also, I know we mentioned the makeup, the costume of Ecco is fantastic in the American flag and the mask with the gunshot in the top corner of the mask as well. Really cool. Again, looks slightly like something out of The Purge. Feels like some of the designers on the show this season have watched the multiple Purge movies and the TV series and taken some inspiration from those post-apocalyptic costumes that they're all wearing in those. So really, really cool designs for the episode.
Yeah, I think with that, onto Case Note 4. Jim's Haven has become a target, with all these people coming in from all over Gotham, from different zones, to join this community at Haven. Then where they have come from, their previous masters or owners, if they're slaves, are now starting to focus their attention on Haven, just in the same way that Penguin has done, because with Mr. Penn, Edward the Bulldog, and the Gertrude Capelput Memorial Choir having left, that moment where Penguin realizes that they have left and he is the only one remaining in his zone of Gotham. he has set his sights on Haven, as have the other gang members. You know, we've got here that Bruce has brought clean water to Haven. There's food, there's accommodation. There is a peace and serenity in comparison compared to the other parts of Gotham. Ultimately, it is safe. But because of that, it is looking to be torn down and becomes a target in its own right.
Yeah. And effectively, Jim is telling everybody that if you're living here, there is a rule, and the rule is no fighting amongst each other. Everybody has to work together to build this community and help each other survive until the point when the government might maybe kind of come and save these people. Even though he knows that's not happening right now, that they've been discarded. Even though he knows that, he's trying to keep everybody's spirits up by saying, we'll work together, we'll survive, and then eventually the government will come in and help us out. But we do have the standoff as Oswald arrives with the other three gangs in tow. Jim once again trying to pretend that he has enough bullets to take down Oswald, even though Oswald's factory is still producing thousands of bullets every day. It's a great standoff. It's a really good, funny moment when you see them shooting back and taking out the men who were totally expecting there was going to be no bullets. And then Oswald goes for the approach of send another wave of the men in.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. I must say, I did laugh though, because Jim shouts the order, let every bullet count to his men. And, you know, there's all this gunfire going off, and the three people that have been sent in by Oswald, just two of them are shot. One is still standing, still alive, as then all these guns suddenly go click, 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 as all the bullets have finally been used up. But it's just like, from the order of make every bullet count to effectively indiscriminate firing by his police officers, I think Jim needs to work on his control and command.
Maybe. But remember, Jim did say my men could use the target practice. Maybe he was being very literal there and we thought it was a joke.
Maybe it's new recruits into the GCPD because of people dying and they're just raw. They've got no sense of direction. I'm surprised they didn't shoot some of their own men.
Just turn the gun towards themselves by mistake and stuff. Yeah. I know, like, remember at the end of season 4, the only people that stayed in the city were Jim and Harvey, who stayed in the GCPD. Bruce, who left Selena and Alfred about to leave the city, he stayed in the city as well. And then all of these other gangs, all the other criminals that were there. So potentially the GCPD is made up of a lot of people who haven't been police officers before. They've just taken up the uniform to help out everybody in the GCPD. So potentially that's it. But yeah, it was a fun little moment. We know that Harvey's been sent off to get Barbara to come back again. I love their little interaction that they have between the two of them, where Barbara's like, look, men aren't allowed in here. And are you not sick of being Jim's sidekick? He just asks you to do whatever you want and then you just do it. We finally have a little moment where Harvey's saying, well, that's not how I see it. I'm there to help deliver what Jim wants. You know? And
then he mentions Penguin, and of course, all of a sudden, Barbara's ears prick up. She was literally going to ignore Harvey until he mentioned that the reason he's come for her help is because it's all down to Oswald Cobblepot. And of course, yes, Barbara is still on the rampage for Penguin. So she's suddenly like, right, come on, let's get going. And it's like a really nice sort of quick turnaround there from Barbara. I really like that.
Of course.
But ultimately, Oswald comes in and locks up Jim Gordon to take control of Haven, along with the support of the Street Demons and the other gangs that have come to help him out here.
Yeah.
But I think with that, moving on to case note 5, the death of everything is because those same gangs turn on Oswald as well, which is, leads to a number of different scenes here. I think importantly, as Oswald tries to get Mr. Penn back, from the Street Demons that he is killed.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a really tough moment. And in my interview with Andrew Sellon, I mentioned that there's a lot of kind of funny moments early on in this episode, and his response really was because there's some quite heavy moments towards the end of this episode, and in order to get you through an episode of Gotham like this, you do need some lighter moments, like the Gertrude Cobblepot Memorial Choir singing at their arrival at Haven and singing Oswald down the stairs in his home, that kind of stuff. They're fun moments so that you can get through an episode when really you've lost a pretty great character in Mr. Penn here
Yeah.
at the end of the episode, and some bigger moments that happened as well. But I do like this final moment between Penn and Oswald. They've always kind of been very close to each other over the years, with Penn, you know, making sure that he's keeping himself alive the whole time through, but being a very loyal supporter of Oswald, always sticking with him all the way through. And we have that moment where he tries to teach him one final thing before he dies, where he says to him, well, the reason we left is because everybody had started to hate you. Everybody hates you now. And it effectively feels like Mr. Penn telling Oswald, you need to kind of get a bit of a grip on yourself, or else you're going to lose everybody around you again. You've been alone in the past and you've forced people to be around you. You need to get a grip on yourself, or else everybody's going to be gone and you'll be alone again.
And you need to treat people better.
Yeah.
You know, he's lost that sight, and in that dying moment, Mr. Penn gives him a moment of truth, which again is really important for that character, because that is what he has always done. It is that weird thing, is that he's always delivered the bad news to Oswald.
Yeah.
Yet he has remained alive, and in his dying moments at the hands of a Demon Street gang member, Boo, then he is still telling him the truth, that the reason why he ultimately left his protection to come to Haven, even though he maybe didn't want to, was to send that message that he needs to make sure that he has the people on his side, not just all the guns. And it needs to be done in a way that is not about slavery or slave labor, but a kind of harking back to what Oswald for mayor, that idea of being the mayor of the people of Gotham, to really help his way of doing things. You know, Mr. Penn realizes the importance of having the people on side, because he's worked with the Falcone families. Yep. So, you know, with Carmine and with Sophia at different stages. So he knows how empires should be run in that sense.
Exactly.
And that's why he was such a good right-hand man for Oswald Cobblepot. I think the other great thing that results from this is that Oswald is thrown into prison with Jim Gordon, and it's that caged confrontation between these two men that are old friends, but at the same time, you know, are not on the best of terms at the moment. And you have that great kind of argument taking place between these two in this cell, and you really have Penguin as almost like a childlike green-eyed monster. You know, he doesn't understand how Jim is so popular. For him, Jim is like a bureaucrat. He's kind of one level, he's a single note, whereas Penguin is this memorial choir to his mother. It's a crescendo of greatness, and full of brass, full of violins, you know, all coming to a big close. But they're both in the same place. And Penguin's like, how do you do it? I really kind of like that moment.
It's really good. And again, a lot of credit to Zishun for this episode, because Ben McKenzie's genuinely funny in some of these moments here with Oswald. And you don't get that very often. You get him playing off other characters quite a lot, but he's genuinely funny when he's joking about the fact that the reason why Haven is so popular with the people of No Man's Land and Gotham is because it's so far away from Penguin. It makes them all happy, you know? And he gives these little digs with a little wry smile on his face, knowing that it's winding Penguin up every time he says one of these moments. But they do get away with the help of young Will Thomas. He comes in showing some of the other gangs where there's some alcohol that they can drink, so he can kick the keys into the cell and allow Oswald and Jim Gordon to team up once again to take back Haven. But it is Oswald that wins the day. He's the one that gets all the plaudits from all of the people in Haven as he takes out his gun and just shoots everything around him, taking them all out, whereas Jim was just leading his GCPD gang to point guns to them. Oswald was the one that took those steps to shoot everybody in the room and take back Haven. And he gets the praise. That's where we get the Penguin, our hero, moment at the end of the episode.
Yeah. Ultimately, it plays out whereby the Penguin is seen as the hero of the day, rescuing Haven from the Demon Street gang, Low Boys gang, and the Undead gang. And again, this felt slightly like Shakespeare to me, because it really went very fast towards the end here, in the sense that, you know, the classic line, exit stage left, pursued by a bear, I think. Is it A Winter's Tale or whatever it is? And this was like, you know, enter stage right, Babs on a mission. You have this massive standoff, followed by, you know, enter stage left, right, top, bottom, fire and brimstone.
Absolutely.
As then effectively we see the destruction of Haven. It was like they literally in their grasp had the peace between gangs, Penguin on side, people flocking to the safety of Haven. You have Will Thomas being made a young detective of the GCPD. Everything is feeling fluffy. You've got Babs starting to interrupt this, and then all of a sudden fire and brimstone as, Haven is kind of snuffed out, really.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Do you think this was a cooking accident? Do you think someone was in the kitchen and left the gas on for too long?
It was a gas leak, exactly.
The Condiment King is in the kitchen.
Yeah, Condiment King was in the kitchen, turning on the gas, and yeah. But effectively in this like utter destruction, I presume most of the GCPD has just effectively gone up in smoke.
Maybe. I think there's a way of justifying it, which is that Penguin was about to leave, so possibly they were escorting Penguin and the remnants of his gang off the property, so anybody outside of the building is still alive. But yeah, we don't know where Lucius Fox is. We don't know where Detective Alvarez is, for example, who we saw earlier on in the episode. There could have been a lot of members of the GCPD inside that building who just effectively exploded inside the building. But once again, this is just a moment of Gotham saying, Jim Gordon, you can't win. All the way from season 1, from the earliest moments of the first episode of season 1, the whole show has been saying, Jim Gordon, you cannot get a big win, because if you get a big win, then there'll be no need for Batman. So the show is about saying there's a need for Batman because Gordon's never going to be the leader of everything. And everything was going way too well in this episode. We should have noticed that some of the bad guys were starting to get their comeuppance. Once that happens, Gotham starts to become saved, and that's not going to happen by the end of this series.
Yeah, I mean, what's happened to Will Thomas? Has he been toasted? You know, the other kids, have they been turned into fireworks? What's happened here?
Do you know, I have just this feeling, because Will Thomas is too young and too cute to not be involved in the bad guys. This is a bad city. Gotham's a bad city. And I just have this feeling that Jeremiah some way got him when he was walking across the city, because he was supposed to have walked across the lands that Jeremiah is involved in, wasn't he? So did Jeremiah get his hands on him and get him to go into Haven and plant bombs all around to send a message to Jim Gordon? Is that what's happened?
That's actually really interesting, because when we look back at this for a second time, it was that the explosion comes from within the building. Initially, I actually thought it was an RPG, a bit like with the helicopter. I kind of saw streaks going across the screen, and I thought they were the trails of an RPG. So I thought it was kind of, then you would attach it to the person who took down the Bruce Wayne helicopter, bringing in supplies. But looking back at it, it's not really. It is coming from the Haven itself. It's coming from the buildings. So these bombs have been planted inside. And so that would be really, really interesting to see whether little innocent Will Thomas is in fact a really naughty boy.
I know, I'm very cruel, haven't I? But I do think really the blame is obviously on Jeremiah. I think he's also the person that took down the helicopter in the first episode. I also think the plan that was made to dig underneath the river to get out of Gotham is just crazy enough to be a Jeremiah plan as well. So
these theories, well, interesting.
There were 3 episodes in there. I start to get a bit of theories.
Yeah.
But also, I will say, John, your theory about the RPG being the thing that caused the explosion, it's not too far-fetched. It does seem to cause quite a lot of issues in the city of Gotham, really. There's a whole stash of rocket launchers there ready for any eventuality, isn't there?
Well, it's part of where my Shakespeare analogy comes from, because I did say RPG enters stage right, because it was just like, it was, we're talking about crescendos and music building to a big thing, and it's like, that's kind of what happened, but it was the reverse, because it took away that crescendo for Jim Gordon, Penguin, even for Barbara with this showdown. She's finally got Penguin in her sight, and then you have this huge explosion, Haven gone, Penguin presumably safe now from Barbara because she's been knocked off her feet, and the thing that has been built by Jim, Lucius, Harvey, the GCPD is absolutely in ashes now. So yeah, this is Gotham just tapping him on the shoulder saying, no.
Or maybe this explains why there was an entire huge, 3 or 4 story, housing project left empty and open for Lucius to put people into. The last episode when he just found it was like, this seems really perfect. I don't know why anybody's not living here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bombs is what it is. I think that's it for our top 5 case notes for this episode. Gotham moment of the week. John, I'll give this one over to you. What do you think?
I mean, there's quite a lot actually, but I do like Olga singing Penguin Our King on her own in her thick Eastern European accent. Just great. So good. Just really funny. Nice bit of comedy here in a very kind of also semi-serious episode of Gotham as well. Yeah. And I think the other one for me is just the fact that Haven gets blown up in the way that it does. Just how rapidly Jim goes effectively from hero to zero. Everything that seemed to be building nicely for him and the GCPD and for the innocent inhabitants of Gotham. Gotham has just said, not happening on my watch.
Absolutely.
In terms of character, Gotham character of the week.
Loads of these. Yeah, obviously Mr. Penn, this final episode for him, he has been a recurring character for the last 2 seasons. It's really sad that he's gone. Definitely check out our interview with Andrew Sellon, who played the part of Mr. Penn on the show. He does mention the character that he was supposed to be becoming in the show, had it developed, and had he been allowed to stay on the show for longer, had the show gone past 5 seasons, what character he would become. He talks about the actual scene where he died. There's a nice funny story about what was going on in the actual setup of that scene as well. And he speaks about his relationship with Robin Lord Taylor and the rest of the cast that he worked with over the seasons on the show. Really worth checking out that interview. Also, we had the mutant leader in here, a comic book character that we have mentioned from The Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller. I think the realization of him on screen is really good, but I do think Echo does have to be given a big award for her moment in this episode as one of our characters of the week.
Yeah.
This is a really standout episode for Echo. Some people even forgot about who the actress was because she only appeared in a few episodes before, but this is a moment that you'll see in previews, you'll see at the end of the season, you'll see clips of this scene with this character because it really does stand out as a big Gotham character.
Absolutely. I think for me, Olga, Mr. Penn, amazing. The mutant leader, great to see him visualized just like the comics. And yeah, I mean, Echo is an absolute standout here in terms of the design of her costume, her makeup, but also just her interaction with Selina Kyle in that initiation ceremony, that praise him moment for Jeremiah. Really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely. John, that only leaves us with, how would you rate this episode of Gotham Season 5, Episode 3, Penguin Our Hero?
I give this 5 destroyed paradises out of 5.
Wow.
I really enjoyed this episode on a number of different levels. I think it really reminds you that Gotham knows best in terms of the city is not going to let Jim have his paradise ways at all. I think we really see Selina take on and feel comfortable in her own skin as Catwoman. We have some really nice reoccurring characters here, both with Olga on the stairs singing away to Oswald Cobblepot, but also the loss of Mr. Penn, one of our favorites, and certainly I love the fact that he had about 9 or 10 pens in his top pocket as well. Hadn't really noticed that before. That was a nice little touch. And yeah, we have Bruce Wayne and Selina going off into the dark zone, teaming up, and we have Oswald being villain, reasserting his authority again, being thrown into the cell with Jim, back to zero, and then being the hero again, all in one go, and almost that taken away from him by Babs, but then the absolute explosive ending there, which was Haven blowing and being ripped apart by these explosions. So yeah, I think there's a really good episode. I really enjoyed it.
Excellent stuff. I'd probably agree with you. This is one of my favorite episodes so far this season. And this season has been really good. I'm really enjoying it. I do feel more than any season so far, more than the 4 seasons before now, this is a season for the fans. If you've enjoyed Gotham up to this point, it feels like you're going to be getting more Gotham than you could ever Gotham. It's really, really good. Well done to Zayshan for this episode. Looking forward to the other 2 episodes he has coming up this season as well, if this is the standard that he's at for this episode. So really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fellow Gothamites, we'd love to hear from you about what you thought about this episode and all the episodes of the season. All you need to do is email us at feedback@gothamtvpodcast.com. You can join us over in our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/Gotham TV Podcast. You can find us on Instagram or on Twitter at Gotham TV Podcast as well. Just let us know your thoughts about each of the episodes as we go on. And we will, of course, be back next week with Gotham Season 5, Legend of the Dark Knight, Episode 4, Ruin. Unsurprisingly.
Yes, the ruins of Haven.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be picking through those ruins for quite some time, I think.
I think so. Thank you so much for joining us, fellow Gothamites. Also coming up this week over on our other podcast, on Defenders TV Podcast, The Punisher Season 2 begins, the second last season of Marvel TV on Netflix, we believe. But yes, we'll be kicking off on Friday, the 18th of January, 2019, with our thoughts about Episode 1 of The Punisher Season 2 on Defenders TV Podcast. Come check that out.
Yes, if you also like things Marvel orientated, then our Marvel Netflix sister podcast is out again after a short hiatus over the Christmas period, with the first episode of Season 2 of The Punisher over on Marvel Netflix, out on January the 18th. And yeah, looking forward to that. Head on over to defenderstvpodcast.com for that, for sure.
And if you like explosions, you're probably going to like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Explosions and gunfire. I think, head on over to listen to our thoughts and discussions on everything to do with The Punisher Season 2.
Talk to you again soon.
Thank you so much, fellow Gothamites, for listening. As always, it has been a pleasure. I'm off to slice and dice because, well, I think it's just about ready for dinner time. And after we've had our lovely fill of food, we'll be back to speak with you again soon. Bye.
Bye, Pengy.
This is Andrew Sellon, Mr. Penn on Gotham, and you're listening to Gotham TV Podcast.